I had a D&D session recently that went, well, not exactly according to plan. My original idea for this video was going to be just a dissection of an encounter that I made and then the story behind it. Guess what encounter didn't happen and then might never actually happen? My players had just finished a massive encounter with gnolls. If you watched my last video on this campaign, you are well familiar with the night that was supposed to be really cool and spooky and called the Night of Blood and Hunger, but now, according to popular demand, is called Gnolapalooza. We laugh, so we don't cry. So after my players saved this town from the results of a deadly curse, they then had to investigate the origins of it. I used the clock system from Blades in the Dark to help guide their progress through this investigation, as well as a way to give weight to failed checks that they made. That's something I recommend you stealing for your own games if you're feeling like investigations or other kinds of pre-encounter prep feel a bit toothless. Check out my video on Blades in the Dark for more on that. The players quickly discovered that the source of the threat was a tree spirit known as an Askafroa, which I just stole from Norse and German folklore. Now the clocks I set for this investigation were threefold. 1. Find the Askafroa's weakness. 2. Appease the Askafroa. And the third clock measured the Askafroa's wrath or suspicion of the party as they worked this investigation within the town. Essentially, this was the clock that got ticked whenever the players failed a part of their investigation. Now, the Askafroa's weakness originates from a local legend, where the locals would bury a piece of bark from the Golthius tree beneath her ash tree, causing her to slumber for a year. She has since found a way to avoid this weakness, however, through a deal she made with a local hag called Madame Toadsizzle, who now guards the Golthius tree. The party even succeeded on their investigation check so well that they discovered that the Golthius bark could be fashioned into a staff that could pacify the Askafroa's army of plant blights guarding her, making her a much easier target. So here's what I thought would happen. The party would investigate, negotiate, or defeat Madame Toadsizzle, build or craft the staff from the tree she guards, and then take down the Askafroa. Here you can see me building all of the blights from piece of plant stuff I found on sale at the craft store. What actually happened was the group decided to get cozy with Madame Toadsizzle. Maybe too cozy, as one of the parties started to flirt with her to get on her good side. We're talking 50 Shades of Fae. Anywho, they just up and ask her to scry for the location of a Golthia staff that already existed. Now, because this isn't my first rodeo, I had a general idea that this might happen, but few specific notes on encounters or how the party would even get this staff from the empire that had it at all. This party is pretty bad at stealth, and they'd have to steal it. But here's where I would say my experience as a DM kicks in. The best thing you can do in these instances when the story goes off the rails is to tie it back into one of the characters' backstories. Aha! You're not off the rails at all, you've just found the thread to another plot beat that I've carefully woven into this tapestry of lore and drama. And that really is the first tip that I would toss out to another DM in my shoes. Work the character's choices back into the story. I've changed my approach to D&D from having a pre-prescribed plot that I'm going for to instead shift towards character-based stories inside a living world with a central tension. This means that whatever choices the characters in my game make was the story the whole time. I just have to have the world respond to whatever decision that they made, and the new quests and encounters spawn fully formed as a result. Let's get back to the story for a real-world example of this. After a member of the party agrees to a deal with the hag, I have the hag scry where they can find this staff, which I've worked to be a relic taken from a shrine from one of the characters' backstories. Now, in this character's backstory, she was protecting a shrine filled with artifacts, and a group of Empire raiders came in, took her prisoner, and took a bunch of the artifacts, and she wants to find them. Now, the hag spies that one of the raiders who actually stole all these relics delivered this Golthia staff to a new temple at a nearby town, a temple that happens to double as both a bathhouse and a brothel. What? Different kinds of gods require different kinds of worship, and this one was built well outside the Empire's realm of influence, so it had to have a good selling point to the local populace, hence bathhouse and brothel. Anyway, after delivering it, this raider gets pride of place every time he visits, which is why he's currently still there. So off the party trots to a city I haven't prepped, on a quest I haven't designed, all the while my custom minis I built for a fight that's not going to happen languish unused in a box. In fact, if the party does get this staff, those blights are going to be doing a whole lot of nothing when they come out later. So honestly, that was probably my bad conceptually from the start. Anywho, this is where my Blades in the Dark experience comes in hot yet again. If you're not familiar, Blades in the Dark is a game that's basically preparation free, where you essentially come up with the heist and its complications while you're doing it. All you need to decide at the start is your approach, then the dice just start rolling. If you're trepidatious about this, believe me, you're not alone. D&D players are notorious for taking entire sessions to plan out a heist. To me, that's time wasted. It's boring, and for me who only gets to play with my friends like once a month, that's too much time wasted. Blades in the Dark handles it much better. If you want to have something set up ahead of time when you encounter it during a heist, you can just call for a flashback to say how you did that and roll to see how effective it was. There's an extra resource called stress that gets used in Blades in the Dark to mitigate that, but in D&D, calling for a flashback and then rolling low is failure enough to work in this instance. And that's the second major tip I'd give for someone trying to make a session work on the fly for a scenario that they just weren't totally prepared for. Lean on the player's creativity. Let them pitch ideas and then quickly roll them into the game. A big thing I took from Blades in the Dark is to not get too bogged down in the planning and keep the pacing pacey. But as a return to the players, for them giving you their trust and not covering all their bases ahead of time, let them use that flashback mechanic. Get them right into the action, let their decisions and obvious consequences do the encounter prep for you, but then let them call for flashbacks that help respond to the situations that you present to them. That way, they're not feeling punished by the fact that you just rushed them into a scenario. Now for my party's approach, they made a deal with a local information broker/fence to get into the temple with cover, but their subsequent rolls to actually get the staff were so low that they resulted in a decorative peacock that was strutting around the bathhouse to blow their cover and get the attention of the guards, who came rushing in to see a member of their party with the staff in their hands, caught red-handed. That's a roll initiative moment. So, instead of a fight against a tree spirit and her army of gnolls and plant blights, I'm instead about to build a bathhouse encounter. Well hey, at least it's a good opportunity to learn how to do a resin pour. I'm Ben DeHart, and if you like this video, subscribe and come back and catch the next one. I'm sure what happens in the next encounter will go exactly according to plan. See ya.